It's the two latest entries in the Battlefield series, Battlefield 5 versus Battlefield 1. If you're unfamiliar with how this series works, what I do is take two games from the same series and compare them in different categories, and whichever game I feel is better in that particular category will be awarded a point. By the end, we will have a final score to determine which game is better, and I'll leave the categories I'll be judging on screen now. Keep in mind, this video is composed entirely of my opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine, and feel free to leave your opinion in the comments. And without further ado, Battlefield 5 versus Battlefield 1. First category I would like to talk about is gunplay. Now, the gunplay in Battlefield 1 I think is great. The recoil, the handling, the weapon ranges. Each weapon has strengths at different ranges. You can't just kill someone at 200 meters away with an SMG, unlike Battlefield 5, which is more realistic and true to the setting. The guns feel great and they're well balanced. Sniping is so satisfying in the game, and every weapon has its own strength and use. Battlefield 5 is a little odd with its gunplay. A lot of the weapons are very easy to control. Some of them are just laser beams and are very easy to take out enemies at range. I definitely noticed the recoil was a lot easier to control on most weapons in Battlefield 5. I'd say the guns still feel good to use, but they certainly aren't as well balanced. I mean, this game was kind of a mess with the gunplay. They made so many changes and updates, nerfing damage at certain ranges. It just really isn't as refined and polished as it is in Battlefield 1. I mean, I was beaming people with a high fire rate assault rifle in the M2 that's supposed to be a close range weapon, so this is going to be an easy first point for Battlefield 1. Customization to me is an easy one as well. Not to get into the whole realism debate again, but I do really enjoy the atmosphere and immersion in these Battlefield games, and some of the camos and customizations for Battlefield 5 are obviously not true to the World War II setting at all. Having the prosthetic limbs or bright colored camos, some of the uniforms aren't accurate to the time period. It can really break the immersion, and when I'm playing this game, I want to feel like I'm getting a World War II experience, and I didn't get that with Battlefield 5. Battlefield 1 isn't perfectly realistic to the setting either, but it's definitely more so than Battlefield 5. The camos are very minimalistic while still looking good. The uniforms are very accurate to World War I. Everything is just more authentic, so another point for Battlefield 1 there. Next is maps. I enjoy a majority of the maps in both games. They have a lot of variety, and of course they look great visually speaking. However, in terms of general design and immersion, I largely prefer Battlefield 1. The maps feel more authentic to the World War I setting, trench warfare, large open fields, small towns and villages, and also feel like they have a much more balanced design, lots of cover and equal sight lines. The problem with Battlefield 5 maps is nothing really about it screams World War II to me. There's nothing unique or extremely atmospheric about it. It just feels bland and uninspired. I do really enjoy the Pacific maps, but aside from that, there isn't much else. The design is also considerably worse. A lot of the maps are very open, and a lot of them have tons of foliage that campers can hide in. Lots of people just like to go prone in the bushes and tall grass, and that was really annoying because it's almost impossible to see them unless you walk like right over them, and by that point you're likely dead anyway, so that's another point for Battlefield 1. Immersion is Battlefield 1's greatest strength. The atmosphere in the game is incredible. The sound design, the audio, everything feels very grounded and immersive. It's the most immersive Battlefield game in my opinion, and it's authentic to the World War I setting. You can tell almost immediately you're playing in World War I based on map design, the weapons, uniforms, factions. You see cavalry and attack planes across the map. Battlefield 5, like I said earlier, is a lot more bland in my opinion. It can still be very immersive, don't get me wrong, and it has its moments where it can feel like you're literally in a war movie with artillery fire landing around you, or like in the Pacific War mode where you're trying to invade the shore in boats and you've got cannons shooting at you and everything. It certainly has its moments, but if we're talking general immersion and atmosphere, Battlefield 1 definitely wins. Vehicles in Battlefield 5 are fairly well balanced. Tanks can be pretty weak sometimes and can be really easy to take out, but planes feel well balanced, and generally the vehicles aren't crazy weak or overpowered. Battlefield 1, I think the tanks are good. They can still be taken out fairly easily by a group of assault players, but they serve their purpose well. However, the planes and cavalry are really strong in my opinion. I'll show some gameplay now, but it is just so easy to just stack up kills with cavalry by just trampling people. I would run into an enemy spawn or flank and get an easy 6+ kills or so, run out, heal, then run right back in. Planes are also really strong against infantry. There's of course anti-air guns, but they're stationary and nobody's just gonna sit there and take out the planes the entire game. So congratulations, Battlefield 5, you get your first point. Next, the game modes. This is a pretty tough one because both games have great game modes. I love Pacific War from Battlefield 5, which was a new addition. However, I don't like what they did with Grand Operations and how they changed it from Battlefield 1. They did also split Conquest into 2 different modes. There's Strategic Conquest and Tactical Conquest. Tactical being the more infantry style maps, while Strategic being the larger scale classic Conquest mode. Battlefield 5 does of course also have the Firestorm Battle Royale, and you'll be lucky to find more than 10 players for that these days, so it's basically not even part of the game anymore. Personally, Operations in Battlefield 1 were great to me, and I really didn't like the changes they made with Operations and the Conquest modes in BF5, so this point will go to Battlefield 1. The campaigns are very similar in design. They have this more open sandbox style to most of the missions. Campaign is really a lot more based on personal preference, and I enjoyed the war stories and the prologue to Battlefield 1 personally more than Battlefield 5. I found a lot of the stories in Battlefield 5 a little corny and ridiculous sometimes, whereas Battlefield 1 had more focus on dark, authentic storytelling for the era. For most of the missions at least. It still has a couple corny stories as well, but regardless, I prefer Battlefield 1's campaign, so the point's gonna go to Battlefield 1. Visuals in both games are great. Graphically speaking, Battlefield 5 I suppose does look better, even if it's not that noticeable of a difference, but I prefer Battlefield 1's art style and color palette. The game looks phenomenal. Everything is so detailed, enemies are easy to spot, lots of visual clarity. In Battlefield 5, enemies are a lot harder to spot. Everyone blends in with the environment more. It's a little hard to explain, but everything in Battlefield 1 has a lot more clarity. I also largely prefer Battlefield 1's lighting and the contrast, so for me this point goes to Battlefield 1. That leaves us with a final score of Battlefield 1 7 and Battlefield 5 1, leaving, as I think most of you expected, Battlefield 1 as the better game. I don't think Battlefield 5 is a terrible game or anything, but compared to Battlefield 1, it really does feel like a step down, and Battlefield 1 still has a very active player base 5 years later after its release, and I can't say I'm too optimistic about Battlefield 5 being that way in a few years. Again though, this was based on my opinion, so feel free to leave which game you think is better and how you would score the games personally. And if you want to check out my individual reviews for Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, I'll leave the links in the description. Consider subscribing for more Battlefield content in the future. I also have a Discord server you can join. A link for that is in the description as well. And other than that, thanks for watching and have a great day, everyone.